Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Bechet, and this is the AAF Exchange, a podcast from the American Action Forum, where experts provide clear, data-driven insights into today's economic and domestic policy issues. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in.
Welcome to 2026. It's official.
Larry David had said we can't say Happy New Year anymore. He said January 4th was the cutoff. I don't know if you've seen that clip, but
I didn't know. I've been struggling with when are you supposed to have your Christmas decorations down?
Yeah, well, I think it's different, because technically, being Catholic, we're still in Christmas time,
Right.
so
Until Epiphany.
yeah,
So then you take them down.
right.
Well, the county of Arlington isn't paying attention to that. They were all out of the park yesterday. I mean, I was walking.
Yeah.
I was walking the dog. I was like, oh, it's over.
Yeah, I saw Natalie and Megan taking down all her Christmas decorations on Monday, so those were in and out.
I like that because we don't want this place being too festive.
Yeah. Festive season's over.
That scares me.
All right, on that fun note, let's do the introduction.
Okay. Yes.
On this episode of the AAF Exchange, the economic outlook, another government funding deadline, and Venezuela's oil impact on energy markets. Joining us to discuss all this, AAF President Douglas Holtz-Eakin and AAF Director of Energy and Environment Policy, Pomerleau. Doug, welcome back.
Kyle, welcome to 2026.
Yes, yeah. We're both, it's a good start to the year. We're both our teams are playoff bound. It's been an exciting time to be back in the office. So what's been on your mind?
The Larry David rule. So I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say New Year.
Yeah.
New Year, Kyle. And for the listeners, Kyle is powering through this podcast with an incredibly sprained ankle.
Yeah.
So if you get any verbal missteps, we're going to attribute them to the ankle. I don't know how.
Something about blood flow.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
What's going on in my mind? So there was an international tax development. Now, normally I do nothing but kvetch, and a good thing actually happened. But the good thing is at the end of a lot of bad things. So I'll remind people of the bad things. A long time ago, the Obama administration, the OECD began this base erosion and profit shiftings initiative where they started tracking multinationals and where they earned their money and essentially built a framework where they could tax multinationals in every jurisdiction, which got followed by a Pillar 1 and a Pillar 2. Pillar 1 being let's share our tax base for our big tech companies who are making money online with other countries, let them tax it. Bad idea. Pillar 2 was the global minimum tax. The Biden administration was all in on this, and the Trump administration came in and said no. And the House Republicans in particular said no. Mm-hmm. And in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the House-passed version had the revenge tax, the famous Section 899, which said if you have a bad tax, meaning the other country, we're going to tax you, your companies in the United States at an ever-increasing rate, 5 percentage points a year. So this led to a complete freakout. The upshot of this is that the G7 agreed quickly to exempt the U.S. from the global minimum tax because we have a minimum tax. We've always had a minimum tax on our corporations, and this never made any sense to me. And now the OECD as a whole, 145 countries, has ratified this. Mm-hmm. And so, you can go to our website, read the whole history of BEPS, Pillar 1, Pillar 2, and then throw yourself off a cliff. Or you can just be happy that we've gotten to a reasonable resolution of this.
Yeah, you had a good dish out of this earlier in the week, so
Yeah.
We'll make sure to include the link to anybody that's actually interested because they can find the relevant information from there.
It's hard to follow this stuff, but it's actually important.
Yeah,
And
it's very important. And, it is nice that we're starting off 2026 by actually being happy about something. And
it was a note of international cooperation, which I will just remark for the record is unusual at the moment.
Yeah, I maybe we hopefully in 2026 we find more to be happy about because we do a lot of negative reviews on in the podcast.
Well, I'm a hater.
Yeah,
I think that hurts.
I mean, when I first started here, one of the best stories you said was about what your job was like in the Bush administration. Basically, being like, my job was to just shoot down bad ideas.
Absolutely, 90% of what good economists do in government jobs is kill bad ideas.
So, anyways,
and I'm a hater, so that was a good job for me.
And everyone should go sign up for the Daily Dish on that note.
On that note, yes.
All right. So as we start 2026, let's sort of get the lay of the land.
Right.
Starting with the economy, obviously this is big. This is going to be big, a hot topic. An election year. What's the latest, and what should people be watching this year?
So we have these sort of incredibly mixed readings on the economy, which are we have a labor market that continues to essentially just grind along. Unemployment rates ticked up by 0.5 percentage point in the course of 2025. We're creating 40,000 odd jobs, most of them in healthcare. So if you're a home healthcare person, this is fantastic, but nothing else looks very good. Third quarter GDP, 4.3%. And the resolution that got revealed today, we got the third quarter productivity data, non-farm productivity growth, 5% in the third quarter. That's an unbelievable number. I literally don't know the last time we saw 5. So normally you get a big productivity jump when you come out of a recession because like you've helped people on the payroll and now you're doing something. That's not what's going on. So that's baffling. And how did we do the consumption, investment, government spending in that 4.3%? Well, we had a really good household spending number, a really good consumption number, despite the fact that real disposable income did not grow, 0 in the third quarter. So there are a lot of things that aren't adding up well here, and so I think the main thing that happens when we come into 2026 is we get back to a regular diet of data on the economy, which is an important thing, and we get some sense of what the genuine strengths are. What are the statistical anomalies, and what do we need to do? And then that means the Fed, that means the administration and the Congress. Yeah. So that's the thing I'm most looking forward to, is a little more clarity on where we are.
Yeah, because we talked about this a lot last year, where we had months of data that didn't come out because of the shutdown.
Well, and it leads to things like the CPI was inflation was 3%, both top line and core in September, and then we have this hiatus. We get the data at the other end, and it's 2.7 top line, 2.6 core, and you think, wow, that's good news. Then you look inside, and for those numbers to be true, shelter inflation had to be 0. Yeah. Are you buying 0? It's hard to buy 0. Yeah. Right? I mean, so it's a situation where you never believe 1 month's data, and I think you really disbelieve 1 month's data coming out of a shutdown because I just don't know what's going on.
Interesting. Yeah, and of course, the big thing for this year is we're going to get a new Fed president. We're going to be, looking at the possibility of a lot of different, inflation numbers and jobs numbers going forward, and their dual mandate that's going to play a big role in 2026 economy.
Last footnote to this, which is technically a leak, so this podcast won't go out until later. So I guess, but Fred Ashton, who's going to write the Daily Dish tomorrow on the employment report that comes out on Friday, noted that in a very offhand way, Chairman Powell said that the BLS number is probably 60,000 jobs too high every month. So the real number is probably 60,000 below that. That means we've been losing jobs because we've been averaging 40, which gives you a reason for a bias toward rate cuts that I otherwise wouldn't have. So it is worth keeping an eye on how this all plays out. We're going to see the number on Friday, and then in January we'll see the revisions to 2025, which is what he's pointing to. We've had this sort of pattern of revisions, and so they're counting, I think, on fewer jobs than we're actually seeing.
Yeah. In terms of timeline, when is the next Fed meeting, and when
the next Fed meeting's end of January 27, 28, I think.
And then when will because obviously the new Fed will have a new Fed president this year, so his term is up in May.
So
things to keep an eye on.
Fun spring.
Things to keep an eye on. All right, let's turn to Congress, because there's a lot. We have a 5-month sprint essentially before we get to election season. What's the top of their agenda in 2026?
Timeline-wise, the first thing to do is fight about ACA subsidies. That's today. We get a vote in the House on a flat 3-year extension, something that I don't think anyone believes is an outcome, right? But it's a step in this process. It's a political victory for the Democrats, and then they go to the Senate and see if they can get to yes on something that the House can pass. I'll be honest. I just, as a matter of counting noses, don't see anything that can pass both the House and the Senate. They can all make progress, but I don't think we get there. Next thing we have to worry about is the end of the month when the continuing resolution runs out. So the business of getting appropriations done is probably top of my list. They did 3 of the appropriations. There are 12 appropriations bills. They did 3 in the course of the sort of past passages. They have 3 on the floor in the House this week. Those 3 have been negotiated down to the language between the House and the Senate. So you want to think of this as votes on final passage for 3 of the bills. And I wrote them down because I literally... they put them together, and we have commerce, justice, and science. We have energy and water development, and we have interior and the environment, and these include related agencies. And so they've got these mini omnibuses that are trying to get the approach bills done. In character, they are not the president's budget. Remember, a long time ago, a president's budget came out with these enormous cuts, 25, 40%, things like that. It's not that. That's never going to pass the Senate, right? So it's much less dramatic than that. But the overall top line's not a big increase in spending. It's flat to a little bit down. They haven't released the top line, which I think is actually quite brilliant. What the House guys wanted, what Tom Cole negotiated, was we get a smaller top line than last year, which is down a little bit. And by not revealing what it is, gave the Senate folks some walking around money to, Susan Collins to get things done.
Yeah.
And so that's all smart. So it looks like they're sort of on track. They'll have 6 of them done. There's some real pitfalls out there. The defense bill's still not done, the defense approps.
Interesting.
And the president asked for a 50% increase. I think that's unlikely.
Maybe.
But we'll see. I think most people think we'll get something like 90% of the approach done, and there may have to be a CR on a little patch on the remainder of the government.
Yeah, interesting. So other than those biggest, what are the biggest sticking points on what's left out there? I mean, is there...
I think what's left out there are the big sticking points, right?
Yeah.
Defense and then foreign operations. The State Department's going to be funded, and beginning with the USAID episode, this has now all become incredibly complicated. So
a lot of those DOGE things that started
they're going
last
to come
year
back to
are going to
roost.
come back to
Labor, HHS is not controversial these days. I mean, they just flip the
pyramid.
They just flip the food pyramid every now and then. Life's good. So there's clearly some room for controversies. Here's a way to think about it. There are 2 ways to express priorities. One is how much money you give an activity, and number 2, the character of things you can do with that money in the activity, policy riders. If the 2 sides could agree to no riders, that takes a lot of the politics out of getting these tough things done. But I'm not sure they can, because they want to have things like, you cannot spend this money on operations in Venezuela. Okay,
right.
That's going to be tough to negotiate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Venezuela put the Defense Department. It doesn't seem like there's an appetite to shut down anything, though.
No, both sides want to get the appropriations done. How you get it done remains to be seen. But obviously, it was a good faith effort by all 4 parts of this process to get these 3 bills negotiated down to the language. And they just have to go to the next ones.
I read somewhere that earmarks are starting to pull back up into this process. Is that
they're back?
They're back.
There's no question. A while back, that they made the decision to sort of get rid of the self-imposed earmarks ban because that would smooth the appropriations process. You will note that since then we've had the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. I'm unconvinced that earmarks are the key to making things run smoothly.
That's fair enough.
Just saying.
That's fair enough. What's really interesting to me about this is the first time that we've been operating under the Biden numbers for over a year now. So it would make sense that this is the right time to get.
It's why the top line is probably the least interesting thing here. I mean, it matters for deficits, and I care about those, but it's the composition of government spending that changes between administrations, and this will be the first time the Republicans put their signature on the composition.
Interesting. Yeah, deficits do matter, and hopefully,
last time I checked,
hopefully there is conversation about that. But in general, that's not really a conversation that's around the appropriations process too much because, as we always like to talk about, it's more of the mandatory side of things anyways.
And it'll be interesting on that note. Today, the CBO will put out a couple of years of economic projections, only 2, not a full 10-year baseline. And I'm sort of baffled by that. But if you, Kyle, were doing the 10-year baseline right now, you'd have to write down 10 years of productivity growth so you could figure out what the economy looked like. And I think it's a hard call right now on the science to figure out what's going on with productivity. I can't explain the third quarter. Everyone thinks AI is going to matter.
Yeah.
How quickly, how much? If you do it quickly and enormously, you can change the budget outlook by $5 trillion just on the productivity number pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. So I'll be interested to see where that lands.
All right. So finally, I mean, it was kind of a slow fall.
Yes.
I mean, the funding fight took a lot out of Congress's oxygen. Took all the oxygen in the room, if you will. What other? But now there seems to be like this flurry of activity. What else can we be looking at outside of funding, outside of the premiums?
Well, I mean, if you just sort of go around the policy areas, the health thing's heating up. Right, we're going into an election year, so things that are beyond the ACA. People are going to want to have a signature in health. AI remains just a regulatory battlefield, which is sort of a states versus federals issue right now. That I think that's been a big deal. We're now going to see a whole lot of what we thought was just a domestic energy discussion on, data centers and the grid and how are we going to manage that. That was going to be the focus. Remember, there's a nuclear revival in here somewhere. But the Venezuela episode focuses everything back on oil, which is a little perplexing because we're awash in oil to begin with. And one of the things that Shuting mentions, and I don't want to steal her thunder, but Venezuela is a founding member of OPEC. And OPEC's usually restricting output, not pumping like mad. So I don't know how this is all going to play out. So I think that those energy issues are going to be fairly interesting as well. And at some point, when they start running for re-election, they're going to realize that they're going to have to deal with the budget in a couple of years. That we'll start seeing some tentative steps on Social Security because it's coming.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
hopefully. Well, Doug, thanks for coming on and breaking down all this. Look forward to another good year of podcasts.
Yes,
the next time
should be great.
The next time we're both on together, one or both of us will be either angry or happy with the outcome of the NFL playoffs.
I'm going to be happy no matter what. I honestly, I think. My team is not a very good team.
Yeah.
It has made the playoffs. If they win a playoff game, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Your team has this artificially inflated record, so here
we go.
You can only go down, Kyle.
If there is something that makes me want to win the first game of this more than anything, it's this whole notion about the record be artificially inflating us. You don't go we had a 10-win swing.
This is the NFL equivalent of Catholics versus convicts. Just deal with it.
All right. Well, we can go through a whole podcast where I go into kvetch mode and talk about the Patriots, but we won't do that today because we have to get to shooting.
Okay. Thank you.
Shooting, welcome back.
Thank you.
Did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, I did. Happy New Year.
Yeah, great. All right, let's jump right into things. We got a lot to talk about. You've had a busy start of the year. The big news over the weekend was the U.S. operation in Venezuela. Among the myriad of questions that has followed, what is the Trump administration's request for U.S. oil companies regarding investing in Venezuelan oil?
Yes. So earlier this week, President Trump is strongly encouraging U.S. oil companies to go into Venezuela to invest in their oil industry and extract as much oil as they can from the ground. As we know, Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves of 303 billion barrels, but they're currently only producing about 1% of the world's total oil production. So President Trump, he wants the U.S. companies to go in, spend lots of money, fix their infrastructure, and take out the oil.
So, yeah, as you mentioned, with Venezuela having such a large reserves and crude oil U.S. refineries can process, are U.S. companies likely to jump in?
I think that's a great question. So the reason why the U.S. being the world's largest crude oil producer, we're obviously pumping a lot of crude oil out of the ground, that the President Trump and his administration still want crude from Venezuela is because the oil produced domestically by the United States is not suitable for refining within our country. It's too light and sweet. We need heavy crude oil like the one coming from Canada, Mexico, or Venezuela. That is suitable suitable for our refining capabilities. I think most likely U.S. oil companies will take a wait-and-see approach because of four main reasons. Why is obviously the political stability. We'll have to see how the transition is going, who will be the future leader of the country, what will the leadership or the governance be. I think that's on a lot of oil executives' mind. Secondly, there's really not much of an appetite of the global oil markets right now. It's really muted. There's has been an oversupply of oil here in the United States. Even before this whole Venezuela situation, there has not been much incentive for oil companies to produce more because the prices of oil have been dropping last year. Thirdly, is the infrastructure in Venezuela is terrible. It's been under mismanagement, lack of maintenance. The oil infrastructure has not been maintained well. It's all rusted. So these companies, they can't just go in and extract oil from the ground. They have to spend a lot of money to fix the infrastructure. So I think that will definitely squeeze the profits of these companies. So that's a huge consideration. Lastly is the world is shifting to clean energy. The oil produced from Venezuela is especially carbon intensive. They just directly flare a lot of the methane emissions directly into the air. In the future where carbon emissions are discouraged, Venezuela's oil compared to other countries like Canada or the United States will definitely be less competitive. So I think a lot of companies will probably see how things will unfold and wait a little bit.
So to me, that makes the most sense. As you mentioned, the political instability. Like, why would a company want to go into Venezuela, fix the infrastructure just to have the instability of the political situation become that they lose all that money with no oil coming out of it?
Yeah, and then the only U.S. oil company currently operating in Venezuela is Chevron, pumping about 1/3 of the oil production in the country.
Wow.
So I think if any company wants to increase production, it'd probably likely be Chevron because they're already on the ground. But it's hard for me to see how the oil production and exports in Venezuela can recover significantly in the short term.
And more in the short term, Doug pointed this out before you got in here, that Venezuela is a founding member of OPEC, and they're generally more about restricting the flow of oil, not flooding the market with oil.
Yes, exactly. And that makes it even more complicated. They tend to limit the production of oil to keep prices from falling too low. So that's a huge complicating factor. So these past 3 days, there have been new developments to President Trump's approach to the whole situation. He announced that Venezuela will ship between 30 million to 50 million barrels of oil, the sanctioned oil in Venezuela, to the United States. And then the U.S. government will be in charge of selling those oil at market prices. And then the revenue of those oils will go into U.S.-controlled bank accounts. So with an oversupply situation in the U.S. oil market, I think that's not an insignificant amount. It will likely bring the gas prices at the pump even lower, will make consumers happier, but likely will cause some oil companies headache because the prices will keep dropping.
Interesting. Well, what about the long term? We've talked a lot about the short term. Looking forward, what does this mean for global energy markets?
Yeah, it really depends on, I think the most important factor is the political stability and the regime, how the transition goes. And if there's a peaceful transition, new government, and they respect rule of law, they have a good, healthy environment for businesses. Even though in the short term, it's unlikely they will increase the production significantly, I think if that's the case in the long term, there might be a steady increase of oil production, and that might change the game of the global energy market. But there's a lot of if, and it's very difficult to tell right now, but it looks like there are a lot of challenges and difficulties ahead.
Interesting. Well, Shu-Ting, it sounds like we have to take a wait-and-see approach, which means you're going to have a busy year ahead of you. So thanks for coming on and breaking this down for us and talking us through it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Tune back in for our next episode, where our experts will provide clear, data-driven insights into today's economic and domestic issues. I'd also encourage you to check out any of the links in our show notes, and also follow us on social media to learn more about AAF. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play.